So look, if you want to grow your wealth, your income, and increase the amount of time off, then these are the shortcuts that can help. Welcome to the Wealth Creation Podcast. And good morning, everybody. It's Dan Latto speaking. Hope you're well this morning. So welcome anyway. We've taken just a couple of days off. We took, it's Friday today. So we took Thursday off, we took Wednesday off, and we just wanted some time off, some time away. We pretty much did nothing. I watched some films, went to the beach, sat on the rocks and contemplated, that kind of thing. And we've been putting in an awful lot of hours, and we're feeling a little bit ill. So we just wanted to relax and take some time off because, you know, you can't just be 100% all the time. I know Gary Vee seems to be, but I'm pretty sure he isn't either. It does catch up with you after a while. So we just wanted to take a little bit of time out, but we're back again. Today's Friday, and in today's podcast, we're going to hit you up with the 8 different types of income. So I made a list here. So it's interesting because when you think about income, you know, most people have got a job. And I remember once going for a loan. It was with First Direct, and I think I had like 10 properties at the time, something like that. And they were like, well, we can't take that rental income into account on your loan. And I'm like, oh, well, why can't you take the rental income into account on the loan? Well, your tenants might not pay. And I thought that was a bit weird. What do you mean my tenants might not pay? Well, if all your tenants don't pay, you've got no income, have you? And I'm like, the chances of all 10 tenants not paying are like 1,000,000 to 1, right? I never said that about in War of the Worlds. The chances of anything coming from Mars are 1,000,000 to 1. But anyway, the chances of people, all of them not paying, are like 1,000,000 to 1. I don't know what stats are, but pretty unusual for that to happen. And then I turned it round and I said, so how many sources of income have you got? And she went, what do you mean? I said, well, what happens if you lose your job? I'm like, you've only got one job. I've got 10. So who's more or less likely to be successful, you or I? So obviously she didn't like that. Needless to say, I probably hadn't read How to Win Friends and Influence People, and I wouldn't have given a shit if I had. So I just thought that was quite interesting. You know, how many streams of income have you actually got? Now, I actually don't mean I've got 10 properties and each property gives a stream of income. That's not actually what we mean at all. We're talking about different types of income. So for the lady that I was speaking to, she's got a job, okay? So that's number one. First type of income is a job. We call it earned income. It's a salaried income. One of the things that really annoys me is when we talk about unearned income, and property rentals comes under unearned income. When you're filling out your tax return, it's unearned. Yeah, because we just sit back and don't do anything with our money with tenants, because all tenants always pay. DSS in particular are great payers. We don't have 62% arrears on universal credit, do we? Dear government. All boilers work perfectly 100% all the time. I put a post out yesterday. It was only the 7th of March, and already this month we bought a new boiler. We've put a repair in for another boiler at £300, and we've had to replace an entire shower tray, replace the tiles. That was another £250. Like, yeah, that's just. I know I'm just making it up, obviously, because it's unearned income. We don't do anything for that income, chasing idiot tenants who think it's acceptable not to pay their rent. And how dare you ask me to pay my rent? You're so offensive, you're rude, and you're aggressive because you're asking me to pay my rent. That's what literally the emails that we get from tenants who think it's acceptable not to pay rent. We'll see how acceptable it is when we end up in court, and we can tell the judge the same thing. Who lasts them out of court and gives them a CCJ. It's just ridiculous. Anyway, salaried income or earned income is number one. And one of the mistakes that I see a lot of people make, and I made this mistake too. I was working at Dell. I was on about 100 grand a year. I went from 15 grand to 100 grand in 4 years flat from the age of 26 to 30. I left before I turned 30. So, but this is one of the mistakes that people make is they get an earned income. They start generating income from other places, and then they give up their job too early. And I get that you're giving it up to go focus on the other stuff. But I was on 100 grand a year at Dell. I shouldn't have left. I was only there maybe 18 months. I really shouldn't have left that job. But I was literally pulling my hair out. It was beyond stressful. Everyone else was in the 40s. I was just turning 30. I didn't have the experience. It was a very, very difficult role, very challenging. Dell then just sacked everybody, and you were doing twice as much work to get the share price up and all sorts of crazy stuff, right? So it was a very difficult time, but I left that job far too early. You know, if I had had that job now, today, heck, we'd be doing £250,000 on that as interest and commission easily. It would be beyond easy, that job now, knowing what I know, going back to being 29. Wow, when I look at some of the mistakes that I made, and, you know, it's just a big, big difference. So salaried income, earned income, don't give that up. I know people go, oh, you've got a job, JOB, just over broke, and I hate that. I'd rather you be just over broke than completely and utterly broke and not having a job. Not having a job isn't going to help anybody. Not having income isn't going to help anybody. Okay, so number one, and these are in no particular order, by the way, but number one is salaried income, your job, effectively. Keep it as long as you can. Number two, then, dividends. So a dividend comes basically from a share price when you start investing in stocks and shares and that kind of thing. And I was just looking at AT&T yesterday. Their share price tanked, obviously, like everybody else's share price has, but their dividends are really high. Warren Buffett is a dividend investor. I can't remember who it was. Someone asked Warren Buffett, he said, "What, you know, if investing like you do is so easy, why don't more people do it?" And he said, because nobody wants to get rich slow. Everybody wants to get rich quick, and so they'll put the money into all these crazy schemes. None of them, well, some of them work, but most don't. And then 10 years later, they're still looking for the next scheme. Whereas actually, if you start investing at age 20, like my daughter's 4, and actually we haven't done it yet, but we will be opening an investment fund through Vanguard, more than likely. It's not financial advice, by the way, so please seek a financial professional. And also, we'll be sticking 50 quid a month into a pension for her, so that whatever happens in her life, when she hits 55, she'll have a pension pot available to go. And that's really what you should be doing for all your kids, I think. Again, not financial advice. Just stick a little bit of money away, 50 quid a month. You're not going to miss it. Stick it into a pot. So at least when your kids turn 55, whatever happens in life, because, you know, I can tell you, life is not easy. Nothing's going to hit as hard as life, Mr. Sylvester Stallone said in Rocky. So we know that, okay? But anyway, dividends, it's completely passive. You've got no control over the dividends. You've got no control over the company. Like, I can't tell AT&T what to do. Like, I've got no idea what their plans are, and I don't really care. Here's my money. Pay the money. Now, there's a couple of things you need to know about dividends, depends how old you are. You can stick that money into an ISA, so it's tax-free, and you can reinvest the dividends and buy more stock, and that then gets to compound, which is really cool. Or you can put that into a pension. Obviously, when you turn 55, you can only draw out a certain amount, 25%, I think, right now, as cash, and the rest of it you've got to buy into an annuity, which is fine. And then the only other downside is you can only have £1 million in a pension, which is just crazy. I wish my printer would stop making noises. So that's the idea around dividends. Now, you should have a combination of all these, right? And I haven't got a combination of all these. We've now got dividends coming through, which is nice, but we've only just started doing this. All my money went into property. And whilst property's been very good, and whilst going through these difficult times that we've had in the past, wow, I went through days where I really regretted having property. And then, believe me, I've gone through days where I'm like, oh, wow, where would I be without my rental income? Dividends, you should have them. Start putting away a little bit, let it grow into a lot. Okay, affiliate commission. So again, you know, like some of these we have and some of these we haven't got. We've got some affiliate commission. Some of the best affiliate commission is me recommending other coaches, other people to solve problems. We get, we usually get a good commission on that, and it's usually a nice big lump sum. It doesn't come in very often, but when it does, it's always nice. We can use that money for something. Rather than having £5 here and £2 there, we might get 500 quid from somewhere or £1,000 from somewhere. So getting that type of affiliate commission. And then there's other types of affiliate commission as well, which we're going to start doing more of. So we're going to send an email a week recommending some of the products that we use, some of the software that we use to help us create videos, to, like we just sent one out and made some commission on stock video footage. It wasn't a huge amount of commission, but we take that commission, we can put it somewhere, we can make use of it. Maybe we can take that affiliate commission, we can buy a stock, and then that stock can pay dividends. And so then we get an infinite return, because the money came from nowhere, really. It just came from an affiliate commission. So affiliate, the other type of stuff that you can do are things like ClickBank. So, you know, like people go, how do I get started in internet marketing? You start selling other people's products and get 50% commission. Some of it is repeat subscription commission, which is really nice. And some of it is just in one-offs and you get, you know, 50 quid here, 20 quid there. Or some of it might be £5 a month for as long as that person uses that product. You know, you sell 100 of those, that's £500 a month. Just depends what it is and that kind of thing. But that's affiliate commission. You should have some of that. You know, if you're in business right now, or rather, let me rephrase that. If you're in a job right now and you're like, how do I get started? You start building up a mailing list, start building up your friends and that kind of thing, and you start putting that stuff out there. That's number 3. Number 4 then is royalty commission. So I was supposed to be writing a book last year. We had a load of stuff going on with the kids, some pretty unpleasant stuff actually. So the book just never happened. It never got done. It just never got done, and it should have got done. One of our clients, for example, selling 300 books a month, and you might think that's not a lot of money. Well, 300 times 20 quid, is that 6 grand? 300 times 10 is 3,000. Yeah, 300. Yeah, £6,000 in a month. Is that right? That's amazing, isn't it? Let me just do those numbers. The book's like 25 quid, by the way. So let's just have a look. 300 times 20. My maths is terrible today, but it doesn't matter. It's 6 grand in 1 month. And the month before that, they did really well. I don't know what it was. The last month was their best month ever. 6 grand. That's nice income for the month. Okay, so that's royalties, books, films. If you you know, like Tom Cruise. By the way, do you know that the biggest amount of money that what's he called, Arnold Schwarzenegger made? You will never believe this. The biggest film that he made the most money on is Twins. Twins. Do you know why? Because Arnold and Danny DeVito said, we don't want a salary on this. We're going to take payments. We're going to take royalties based on how much they sell. And worldwide, I know that film's a crazy film. Some people hate it. Worldwide, that film did very well. They made an awful lot of money. That was his best income-generating film ever, all from royalties. Like, most of us aren't Arnold Schwarzenegger. Most of us look like Danny DeVito. But there you go. It's a great example of royalties. But you can do that with books. You can do that with an audio book. And actually, it's going to be, I'm really thinking, maybe we're just going to do an audio book and sell that on Audible. Like 12 chapters, you just hit record, off you go, you edit a little bits out, you know, you just talk for 30 minutes. You've now got a 6-hour book on 12 chapters. Like, I can do that. I can easily talk about that. You know, we're 12 minutes through and we're only on number 4 and we've got 8. So actually, I could pad this out, not that we pad it out, but actually, if we wrote down the topics properly, we could get through that book and create that book and people pay for it and download it. That would be nice royalties. And actually, that's probably one of the things that we're going to do. Okay, number 5, I don't class this as income, but it is a form of transfer of wealth of some kind, but it's inherited income. I don't like this form of income because you can't do anything about it. Somebody has to die in order for you to get it. It's not worked for. And I know there's people go, well, property's not worked for, because they have no idea about the amount of work that goes into being a property owner. But inherited income is a form of income. And I'll tell you, folks, tax planning, you know, if you're starting to invest right now, first of all, you should be reading books on tax, right? That's like number 1. Number 2 is that you need to go speak to someone who deals with tax affairs, inheritance tax, what you can pass on, how you're going to wrap up your properties, what you're going to do with your pension if you want to have a pension, what are you going to do with your stocks and shares? Do you buy that through a company like Warren Buffett does, Berkshire Hathaway, because they only pay 20% corporation tax at the time of recording this, whereas personal income tax, you know, if you're a 45% taxpayer, it's 45% of that dividend income, whereas if it's on into a corporation or into company, you want to pay 20% on tax and you're going to reinvest it anyway. So, and again, you need to get really good tax advice about all of that. But number 5 then is inherited income. Number 6 is what we call passive. And I hate the term passive because it is just not passive. And passive doesn't have to just include rental income. You know, dividends are passive income as well. But I don't know what else to call this, but I would call it passive income, i.e. rental income. you buy a house for 100, your mortgage is 300, your rent is 600, you're making £300. Bob's your uncle, £300 a month, times that by 10, that's £3,000 a month. You can retire, never have to work again for the rest of your life. If only it was that easy, but that's the general gist of it. That's the general idea. As we said, all my money went into, well, I was going to say property, but actually it went into nights out, girls, cars when I was late 20s, and I went from 15 to 100 grand. That's really where it went into. But also at the same time, thankfully, it went into buying property. And honestly, I could have doubled the amount of property that I bought. I made some really silly mistakes. But this is what we call experience. It's the benefit of hindsight. But you've got to get started on property at some point. And if it's 30 grand for a deposit, great. You need to find a way of making £3,000 a month. So £3,000 a month is 10 people at £300, or 300 people at £10. That'll get you £3 grand a month. Times that by 10 gets you 30 grand. That's your first deposit, and you just do one a year. Like, that would be awesome. In 20 years' time, you've got 20 properties. You retire at 15 properties. Never have to work again. Brilliant. Don't retire too early. Capital gains. So capital gains is a form of income. This is where you buy a stock that you think is going to go up, and then when it does go up, you sell it, and the difference between what you bought and what you sell is called a capital gain. You're taxed on capital gains. There's a capital gains allowance if you're UK based, about £11,500 right now. I think it's 11,700 if memory serves. But you've made a capital gain, but some of that can be tax free. The other thing that you could do is buy property. That goes up in value, you sell it, that's a capital gain as well. Again, capital gains allowance will help you offset some tax on there. But again, this is a form of tax that you should be doing. I've got a SIP, and we bought some Tesla shares. We bought 267, we sold at 325, and that was a capital gain. But because it's in a SIP, it's tax free, so that money just gets reinvested. We made a big mistake on Bitcoin, which was we sent the order to buy the Bitcoin at $1,500, right? Was it £1,500? It was £1,500. We put 10 grand into that, but they never received, excuse me, it gets me right there. They never received the order, so they claim. Bitcoin went up to about £15,000, about $20,000, and we would have sold at that point, but they never received the order. We would have turned 10 grand into 100 grand tax free, and it never happened. You know, it's one of those fish that got away kind of thing. Anyway, and even if we hadn't have sold it then, Bitcoin's about 3 grand right now, we would have doubled our money, turned 10 into 100 in a year's time. I mean, it occurred within 6 months, did that anyway. But, well, what a mistake. Anyway, that's a capital gain. You can put it into a pension, depending what it is. As a wrapper, you can trade stocks and shares and that kind of thing through a wrapper. And I don't mean 50 cent, I mean a tax wrapper. Some people didn't get that joke. And then, so that was number 7, capital gains. Let's have a quick drink of coffee. And then the last type of income stream that you should have is interest. Like, I'm not sure about interest, by the way. If you go to a bank and you give them 100 grand and you're getting 3%, that's really not interest in my book. That is just treading water, just staying still, just standing still. You're not moving anywhere. Inflation is eroding that interest that you've got. It just cancels each other out. Depends what the interest is. We're in some property groups where, you know, you can lend money, you get 9% a year, but it's slightly higher risk. I know it's protected by the property, but it's not in a bank. Not that banks are completely risk-free, but under 85 grand right now in the UK, if a bank goes bust, you're covered by the government for that 85 grand. Any more than that, you've lost it. But again, this is about having money in all sorts of different areas. You might want to put 10 grand into a high interest bank account that takes maybe 3 months to pull the money out, or you can only draw it out once a year kind of thing. So if there's an emergency and you need the money, you've got access to it. But for me, you know, that 10 grand could be better spent on different things. It could be giving you dividends. It could be helping you start a business. It could help you pay someone to help you write the book to get royalties. It could be going towards deposit on your first property. It could be all sorts of different reasons that you might want to use that. And so they, right there, are the 8 different types of income. So now your homework then. Yes, you've got homework. Your homework is to go back through them. So grab a pen and paper, press pause right now, and just write these down. So you've got salaried or earned income, number 1. Number 2 is dividends. Number 3 is affiliate commission. Then you've got number 4, royalties, i.e. books. Number 5 is inherited. Number 6 is passive. Number 7 is capital gains. And number 8 is interest. I can't do my fingers. Number 8 is interest. So make a note of those and work out which one you've got and which one you need to plug, and start plugging some of those. Even if you're just going to put 50 quid a month into your kid's pension pot, do that. And maybe another £50 into a Vanguard ISA in their name. I don't know if Vanguard do ISAs, by the way, but go get, and again, this is not financial advice. This is what I am doing with mine. That's a better way of saying it from a legal perspective. It's like you got to get more educated about this stuff. Go buy one of the very first books I bought when I was like 14, 15 was The Motley Fool. And I remember being told off at high school, Templemore High School, because I had the Yorkshire Evening Post, and every Thursday it had all the share prices. It wasn't the Yorkshire Post, maybe it was the Guardian, or it was the Times. And they had the share prices. Might be even been the FT. I must have looked a right nerd. But I had it in my bag, and the teacher was, "What's that? What are you doing?" Thinking it was like some porn magazine or something. And it was money porn. It was stocks and shares and dividends. I remember looking at GlaxoSmithKline, and who've split their shares, split them and separate them, and when the price goes up. And if I'd have started investing and that kind of thing when I was that age, and everyone said don't do it, and it's just poor people telling me how to stay poor effectively is what it was. Now here's a rich person, or a wealthy person, don't like the word rich. Here's a wealthy person with assets that generate cash flow that makes me financially free, giving you advice to go get educated. One of the first books I read was The Motley Fool, and then I made the mistake of going on the forums, and there's so many cocks on the forums who think they know it all, but then have to go and get a job to earn their income. Anyway, but the Motley Fool book, it was a really good book as an introduction. It was written years ago. A lot of stuff will have changed, but it will give you a really good idea about what you can go do. But you should be reading up on this stuff. You should be totally reading up on this stuff. All right, that will do us for today. I hope that was useful for you. I hope that was a useful podcast. Today's Friday, so no more podcasts over the weekend, and we'll catch up with you again on Monday. Have a great weekend, folks, and we'll speak to you Monday. Take care. Hey, it's Dan here. Thank you for listening. Really appreciate each and every one of you. Please click like or subscribe to the entire podcast.